Good afternoon, class. I am super excited today. We are talking about delivery. You guys did a fantastic job with your personal experience speeches. If you have noticed, I have written down some notes. This is one of the nicest grades I give for this entire class. A lot of that is because we haven't gone over delivery yet. So after today's lesson, future speeches will be a little more critiqued because now you know exactly what I'm looking for as far as delivery goes. Delivery keeps attention on you and keeps attention on what you're talking about. And so it's very important that you learn how to deliver your speech well without being a distraction. So we will go over that here in a minute. So that being said, in the future, if you're making the same mistake on every speech and I'm writing it down and you keep making it, we take more and more points off by the end. Okay, so that's just something to keep in mind and in your notes. So let's go over the schedule, just what we have coming up. So we did not have class on Valentine's Day. It was a snow day for you guys. We are now talking about delivery today. There will not be class Monday on President's Day. You don't have class anyway. I don't have class, so there will be no class on President's Day. Next Friday, this is really important. Next Friday is the midterm. It will open at 12:01 a.m. Friday night and close at 11:59 p.m. Sunday night. We will have a midterm review, which will be a video lecture just like this, and it will happen that Thursday. So you can study for the midterm on Wednesday. The midterm review will be a video lecture on Thursday, and then the midterm will open Friday and will be due Sunday. I recommend that you are in your class and you do it Friday for your class time, okay? Your informative speech will be due Monday, February 28th, okay? If you have missed a speech, your personal experience speech, we will go back and at the very end, after everyone's given their informative speeches, then you will have an opportunity to present your personal experience speech, okay? I am expecting those who have missed their personal experience speech to have their informative speech ready because that will be given first. I've had students in the past go, oh, I haven't done my personal experience speech, so I'm going to do it today and skip my informative speech. Don't do that, because then you'll be 20 points out for your informative speech because you were there and you didn't do it. So have both speeches ready if you've missed. Now, if you haven't missed, then just have fun doing your informative speech on February the 28th. Next will be the Lego game. That is very exciting. It's a communication game between your two teams. It is a lot of fun, and that's where a lot of your participation grade kicks in. So that is the Lego game. And if we have time at the end of the Lego game, and some of you guys were sick for your informative speech or out of town, then you can have a chance to make it up at the end of your Lego game. Okay, and that basically gets us through the into spring break. You have lots of time. That just gets us for the next couple of weeks, and it's going to be exciting. I'm excited for the future. So let's go over delivery. Delivery is how you do your speech. It is not the what. That's more the topic, like informal speech or personal experience speech, but it is how you deliver your speech. How are you going to communicate it to the audience? It's basically the channel. So you could have a manuscript, and this was done back when our founding fathers were first giving speeches. So a manuscript is a speech that is written down word for word, okay? And that was very useful for presidents and for political figures back when the printing press was just a press and not just a printer like we have today. And so what would happen is the president would come to a town, give a speech, and he'd write it down. And for those who weren't able to attend, they could read the speech verbatim in the newspaper. And then he would send that speech to places he wasn't going to go, and they would know exactly what was said. Now, in the day of radio and in the day of TV and even social media, that doesn't work as well, because if you read a speech word for word, it's going to sound very stiff. So if you're writing a speech right now and you're writing it word for word, stop, because we do not need to see that, because you're just going to sit there and read it. You're not going to make good eye contact. You're going to sound very stiff. You're going to sound very robotic, and you're going to mess up the words. So that is why manuscript had a purpose, because their speeches did not get around that easy. And then as soon as the penny press came along, it started printing out speeches fast. So presidents needed to change how they spoke. These big speakers needed to change how they speak in order to not sound robotic, because they would go to a new town and like, oh, they've already read my speech. So they did not want to seem repetitive, so they would come up with a new speech every time. So that brings us to speech type number 2. So we have manuscript, which means word for word. It is written down word for word. Next, we have memory. And this is what you guys do in our class. You have an outline. And in your main points and in all of your subpoints, you have a key phrase that you use to help you remember what you're talking about. Now, with memory, it does take practice. It takes a lot of practice, and it takes that memory to realize what you're talking about. So for bigger speeches, especially for your group project, you need to have an outline ready for you to help you remember what you're talking about. Okay, and that is why I emphasize key words and not full sentences while you guys are writing your outline, because you need to remember, but you're not doing it completely from memory. You have something to help you along, and you're not doing it completely word for word, because then that'd be a manuscript. And that leads me to the final kind of speech, and you're actually going to give this kind of speech. It's called an impromptu speech. That's the kind of speech you have not prepared for at all. Okay, this is one of my favorite kind of speeches to give and watch students do, because it makes them really nervous. But and I'm sure you guys have probably even given an impromptu speech at some point, like, oh no, I forgot I was supposed to do a speech today. I'm just gonna wing it, right? Impromptu means that there's not a lot of preparation and you just wing it, basically. It's an impromptu speech. It is done in the moment. And so I like that a lot. Please don't do an impromptu speech if it's, in fact, you're supposed to have done a planned speech with an outline and everything. You'd be surprised how many times I've had students come in like, oh, I forgot there was a speech. Let me just give it a shot. And I've actually been surprised by some of these impromptu speeches, because they seem to know what they're talking about. The problem with impromptu is that you often get lost. You go on bunny trails. You end up repeating the same information over and over again. You end up rambling, and that's not good. You don't have time to practice, and so you're going to have a lot of ums and uhs and oh, or my biggest thing is I say so, and a lot of times for high school students, I've seen them go and then, and it's a really long run-on sentence. So impromptu speeches are good if you are in a pinch and you need to speak to a large group of people. They're really good. And so that is why we're going to give an impromptu speech near the end of the semester, because it's very important that you have this skill in your pocket to produce an impromptu speech. Next, we're going to talk about eye contact. Write this down. Eye contact demands attention. This is one of the biggest points I write on for your speeches, is eye contact. Now, a lot of people say you can get away with it by looking at the back of the room. And I don't know if you've seen the room we're speaking in, but it makes it very apparent when you're looking at the back of the room. I would recommend, if you have trouble making eye contact, you could look at foreheads. You could look at just right above their head, or I'm doing it right now, right above their head. But eye contact demands attention. And the whole point of delivery is to bring attention to you and what you're saying. Okay, so it is distracting if your eyes are only looking at your speech. If you're only doing that the entire time, people aren't going to pay attention to you. It gives them an escape to maybe fall asleep or look out the window or something along those lines. So make eye contact. If you're looking up and around, that's very distracting. We want eye contact because it demands attention to what you're saying. Next is volume. From what I've seen, volume changes based on setting. Volume is the loudness you go or the quietness you go. I don't even know if you can hear what I'm saying because my computer mic probably doesn't pick this up. But volume changes based on setting. If I was talking like this to you, this just even sounds goofy. You need to be aware of your setting in order to have the right volume. This is different than pitch. Let's see, do we talk about pitch? Nope, we'll talk about pitch here. So volume is the loudness or the quietness of your voice. And you need to adjust it based on your setting. And that could be the classroom. We're in the library computer room, right? And that is very quiet. And a lot of you guys so far have done good, but it seems like you go a little bit quieter because of the quiet room, because it's soft and you don't want to distract people on the outside. And I have to lean in real close and go like, what are you saying? But if you yell, and in fact, I'm yelling a little bit now, if you yell, that's also very distracting. So be sure to measure your volume and adjust. And you can often see by people's reaction if you are too quiet or too loud. If you're too quiet, they'll be leaning in closer, kind of doing like this. If you're too loud, they might be back, kind of wincing. So you need to adjust your volume to what is appropriate. Let's see. Now let's talk about pitch. It's not in my notes here, but pitch is very important. Pitch is the frequency. If you guys play instruments, you know what I'm talking about. You could be low note, or you could be high note. Very goofy, very silly. But pitch could be a distraction for your audience, or it could help bring them in. If you just talk at the same pitch the whole time, and you don't adjust at all, and you don't adjust your volume at all, this is very monotonous and it is very boring. But if you kind of have a natural flow, it makes it exciting. If you do a different voice, like if you're playing a character, it could be very exciting to get excited, right? Or if you're sad and gloom, you could kind of come lower. And that goes a lot with the tone, and we will bring that up next. So next, you need to have a good tone, a tone that matches what you're saying. And that is influenced by the pitch, by the highness and lowness of your voice, along with the volume. So you do not want to be one solid tone throughout the entire speech. It's called monotone. It's very boring. You just keep talking and talking, and it puts people to sleep. Notice it's not exciting. It's not sad. I'm just talking at a normal voice and it's just monotone. See? You want to adjust it for what you're saying. So if you're saying something sad, everyone tells a sad speech at some time, and everyone I've seen falls into this trap. And that is where they tell a sad story in a very excited, happy voice. They smile great big, like, last year my grandma died, and on her deathbed, she told me, Billy, don't let your dreams die. And then it's distracting because what you're saying doesn't match your tone. It doesn't match what your facial expressions are saying. And so if I were giving this, I'd go sad and then come into happy. It's like, last year, I lost my grandma. But do you know what? On her deathbed, she said to me, Billy, do not let your dreams die. You see, I don't do it the same. I go into sadness and then come up into happiness. For the sadder parts, my pitch is lower. I'm talking lower in my voice because that's more sad. And then as I get more excited and happy, I come up higher. So you need to watch your tone. If you're saying something happy, don't be sad and depressed. Like, for my birthday, I got a skateboard and it made me the happiest boy on the street. You see, what made that sound sad was my tone. I was slow, I was low in pitch, and my rate was also very slow. So in your voice, it has to have a good tone. It has to fit what you're talking about. And that is a big part of my grading sheet. And you'll see, hey, your face did not match what you were saying at all. Your tone was way too happy when it should have been sad, or like you're talking about this great job opportunity, yet you sounded sad or not excited. And so watch your tone. And the only way you can work on any part of your delivery is through practice. You need to practice. Next, gestures. Gestures equals hand motions. Everything you do with your hands needs to have a point. I've already talked about this before in my informative speech topic, but it's good to talk about it again. Your job in delivering is to not be a distraction. I don't even know if you could understand what I was saying because it was so distracting. You need to have control over your hands. The biggest thing I see is fidgeting with clothes, fidgeting with ears. Pockets are the worst. Unless there's a point, unless you're doing it on purpose, keep your hands out of your pockets. Don't lean on the podium. And I can't really show you guys here, but don't lean. It tells the audience, because everything you do and everything you don't do says something. So if you're leaning on the podium, it says he's relaxed. He might not care about what he's talking about. It's very informal. But if you're having a formal speech, it's not appropriate to lay on the podium. So have control over your movements. If you are nervous, I can tell. You rock or fidget or twitch, and that's okay. Everyone has some nervous things, minus hands, obviously. That's why I'm very strict about it. But you get better through practice. You need to have gestures. You don't want to be stiff. Even though that's not distracting, people get bored. You need to have some planned hand gestures that you use. That's why I like to do first, second, third, because that's easy to do. I have some planned hand gestures. So if I do like, oh, it was a big trip, or imagine with me, you're sitting in your room and you're talking on the phone. Okay. It keeps the audience's focus on you. Audiences, me especially, are like goldfish. We have a very short attention span, and gestures, planned, timely gestures help keep their attention. But if you have too many, our attention's going to be on your hands or on your fidgeting and not what you're saying. So you need to have planned hand gestures. Okay. Next, pauses are purposeful breaks. Write this down. Pauses are purposeful breaks. It is important that you have a little pause between your main points. It helps me and it helps the other people in the audience understand what is truly important. If you're going, one of the best places for a pause is right after your hook. You're going to tell your hook, you pause and go, hi, my name is Drew Stegall, and today I'm going to talk about this. Let me give an example. I'll go back to my soda bread. I always wanted a heritage. I never really understood where I came from till one day my mom took a DNA test and found out that she was 50% Irish. Hi, my name is Drew Stegall, and today I'm going to talk about my grandma's Irish soda bread. Okay, pauses are important. You could pause after you tell a story, after you finish the segment, in between main points. It helps break it up and it keeps your audience focused. If you go all in one go, it's distracting and it's hard for the audience to really pay attention to the main points. Okay, have purposeful breaks. This is important. The rate. It is the speed and pace. It's pacing and spacing of words. Is your rate. We talked about it a little bit already. You could go really, really, really slow. Or you could go really fast and talk like a chipmunk. Hi, I'm Manny, and I like warm hugs. You could just go fast or slow. You want to have a mix of both. Otherwise, you fall into monotony, which means mono means one, and then tonus means tone. So monotone, one tone. So if it's just the same rate for the entire speech, it's monotonous. It's boring. You want to, for more important, very salient things that you want to say, you're going to maybe want to slow it down so your audience doesn't miss it. But if it's an exciting moment, you're getting your audience built up and you're ready to go, you might go a little faster. So rate is the speed and spacing of your words. This is an important vocabulary word. Please write this down. A lot of times, nervous people go way too fast. I have not seen anyone go too slow unless they didn't practice and have to read and reread and reread their outline. And then I say, you were really slow. I've never seen someone go up and go, hi, my name is so-and-so. Most of the time it's like, hi, my name is Drew, and today I'm gonna tell you about my dog. Okay, so the biggest thing about rate is practice. About every single point, eye contact, volume, gestures, tone, positive purposeful breaks, speed and spacing of words, all of this can be fixed and worked on and needs to be done through practice. Okay, you can practice in front of the mirror. You could practice recording yourself on your phone, either just the video or the audio. Both are important. Next, ethics. We've talked about this, but it's important to keep talking about it. But ethics is integrity in speaking. Whenever you're delivering a speech, you need to know who your audience is. And are you speaking with integrity? Are you speaking with goodwill? I think one of the lowest forms of integrity is like politicians. They say one thing and then they do something else. And so ethics, you need to talk to your audience and you need to do so in a way that's, you're gonna talk to everyone in your audience. You need to do so with respect. Doesn't matter if your audience agrees with what you're saying or not, you need to talk with respect for your audience. So that's name calling, that's just jokes in general. Like if you're making fun of your audience and they're not signed up for a comedy show, that's not respectful. So don't do that. Don't make fun of people's beliefs or religions unless it is a comedy show. But just talk with respect. It's okay to have a difference of opinions, but you need to do it in a respectful and honoring way. Okay? Oh, this is a good one. Enunciation is well or good speaking. Now we're from Texas, y'all, and me and Jim Bob don't get it done right. Okay, we don't get our enunciation done just perfect for us. Okay, enunciation is how well you're speaking. Is it grammatically correct? So far, you guys have done a great job. You have very well formed sentences, and I think you guys are speaking very well. But in your delivery, you need to speak as what your audience is expecting. Okay, if you're at a school, which we are, I expect you to speak from an educational standpoint, meaning you're going to speak to the best of your ability. Okay, you're going to try to speak with as much with as correct grammar as you can. You're going to speak as well as you can. Okay, that is the enunciation. Enunciation is well or good speaking. Okay, now this is pronunciation. Pronunciation. It's how you say the words. And this changes from region to region. Up in this part of the world, we say battery. And I just got down from a trip to Southeast Texas where they said battery, right? Or we say antenna up here and they say antenna. We say then, they say van. And so pronunciation changes for region to region. It can be distracting if you say y'all in California. It can be distracting if you say y'all in a different part of the world. You need to change your pronunciation in order to not distract from your speech. So if I was in Southeast Texas and I started saying things like we say up here in North Texas, they're gonna not listen to what I say because my accent sounds funny. Okay, so as you guys speak, it might be appropriate to use your accent, to use your own pronunciations here, but it will be a distraction if you go to a different part of the world. Okay, so pronunciation changes from region to region. Okay, finally is rhetoric. And we're going to talk a lot more about this when we get ready for our persuasive speech. We have a whole section about persuasion, but let me go over persuasive language. So rhetoric is language used to persuade, to get people to buy into what you're talking about. So in order to have persuasive language, you need to be credible in what you're saying. You need to be logical. What you're saying needs to make sense. And then finally, you can't be stiff as a board. It's called ethos, and you need to be emotional as you speak. You can't be a robot and expect people to want to listen to what you have to say. So you guys are going to give your informative speech next. And so if we want to believe you know what you're talking about, you need to say, hey, I'm going to tell you how to make lemonade. And I found this recipe from my great grandma who's been making lemonade for 100 years. Or I found this awesome lemonade from this amazing source. You want to be credible. And then you're going to want to make sense. In all of your speeches, you're going to need to be credible, make sense, and speak with emotion. Nobody likes robots. I wish it was easy, just like, here's the facts, let's go about our day. But a lot of speaking with emotion comes with all of what we talked about in our delivery. Your tone, your volume, your rate, your hand gestures. So as you speak, you need to speak to convince your audience you know what you're talking about. Even for this informative speech, you're convincing us to listen and you're persuading us to listen. And you do that through credibility, like, oh, they know what they're talking about. For your personal experience, that's easy because it's you. And we're going to trust that you're not fibbing to us. And here's a good story. So if you started saying a story that didn't make sense, which is number 2, we would then doubt your credibility. It's like, oh, well, that story doesn't make any sense. They said they've got like 12 slam dunks in a game and they're a freshman. No. And then we doubt your credibility. And so your speech needs to make sense, be credible, and then speak with emotion. And you do that through your delivery. So that is what I'm looking for in your speeches coming up. Let's go through that again. In your speeches coming up, they need to be from memory with the aid of an outline to help you remember what you're talking about. Not a manuscript which you read word for word. That has a purpose, but not for this class, but memory. Unless it is the one impromptu speech, you're going to have a prepared speech that you recall from memory and not a speech that you do the day of. For your speeches coming up, you need to have eye contact with me and all of the members of the audience. If you are just staring at me the whole time, that's going to be a little creepy. And I'll be like, oh, I got to look away here. So share the eye contact with everyone in the classroom. Adjust your volume based on the setting. I know we're in a library. I know it's kind of quiet, but you guys can afford to be a little louder. So check your notes because I'll tell you, hey, you're a little quiet. Let's be a little louder so I can hear. But pay attention to your audience. Have planned hand gestures. Don't be distracting with where your hands go. Don't be monotonous. That's boring. Have a range in your voice, in your tone. Don't be happy in a sad story, and don't be sad in a happy story. Have pauses. Have purposeful breaks. That tells the audience what is important. Adjust your rate to what's appropriate. Don't go racing through. Don't go too slow. And it's okay to adjust your rate throughout the story so it's not monotonous. Some parts will be faster than others. Speak with integrity. Always speak with respect for your audience. This is a college class. I need you to have good enunciation. We need to be understanding what you're saying. So you need to be speaking well. Pronunciation. I need to be able to understand the words you are saying. So if you have a really thick accent from East Texas, like Battery, my mom's from there, I gotta make those jokes. You need to adjust it to where it's easier for your audience to speak. And that pronunciation, it changes from region to region. Finally, speak with persuasion so your audience wants to listen to what you're saying. Again, that's being credible, that is making sense, and that is speaking with emotion through delivery. Now, this is very important. The best way to work on timing, gestures, nerves, everything, the best way to work on everything is practice. Practice, 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 and you'll do fantastic. If you have questions or comments, please be sure to message me within the Bright Space. Thank you and have a good day.